Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Ignite Talk on this rainy Tuesday evening. Welcome to both our guests here in person on the Ignite Talk and our guests online as well. My name is Eduardo Noboa. I am the Technical Training and Development Coordinator here on the Ignite Talk, and I am joined here by my colleague, Anthony Fiora, our Lab Coordinator. He will be today. So,
Hello, everyone.
thank you, Anthony. He's going to be helping us technology, and also he's going to be moderating the chat online. So for our friends online, if you have any questions, comments, please post them in the chat. Anthony is organized them to be. Couple of things before we start. So first of all, welcome to the fall 2025 IT Career Pathways workshop series. This is one of our signature offerings here at the Ignite Code. We're doing twice a year during the spring and the fall. And so thank you for joining us today. We are hoping that you will also join us in the next two sessions. So this session is going to be recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel. Also, the presentation that we're going to be using tonight, everybody will receive an email, or everybody that registered to the workshop will receive an email with the link to the recording of the presentation, and also a copy of this presentation in PDF format. So, you don't have to take notes or take pictures, but if you want to, by all means, no problem. So that's that. There's going to be a little break in between. We have a lot of material to cover, so I am going to go fast. But again, I hope that this is something that you guys find useful. All right. Voice now.
Oh, geez, I forgot to turn on my microphone. I hope that you guys were able to hear me. If not, anyways, we're about to start. So, Anthony, if you'll be so kind, the next slide, please. So, again, this is a part one of a three-part series, and tonight we're going to be doing the general overview. Next Tuesday, we are going to be talking about, we're going to do a deeper dive into the careers in support, networking, and cybersecurity. And the following Tuesday, to complete this session three, we're going to talk about careers in data, cloud, and web/app development. All right, thank you. Slide. So let's talk about our objectives for tonight. And again, we're going to have we have a lot of information to cover. So I'm going to go through a lot of this stuff kind of fast. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at any time. Okay. So first of all, we're going to define what is information technology, what is IT, right? Then we're going to address some common biases, misconceptions, and obstacles with people that is trying to get into this field. And then we're going to define the general career path within IT. And then the last part is is important. We're going to be discussing training, certification paths, and other helpful resources. So the idea behind this workshop series is that we are trying to help anybody that is interested in getting into a career in IT. If you're new, you're just looking to get into the field, or switching to a career in IT from another field. So the main thing about this series is to give you an idea of what are some of the things in IT in the field, because it's a vast field, and how can you get into these different areas, okay? To start on an entry-level job, okay? But we're gonna talk about some of the other jobs and opportunities in each one of these fields. We're gonna talk a little bit today about salary statistics. In the next two sessions, we're also gonna be going deeper into that, and also career opportunities, job growth expectations, etc. So next slide, please. So about me, first of all, okay, why am I qualified to be talking about this? I have 20 years of experience in the IT industry. And during these 20 years, I've been doing a little bit of everything. I really started back in the day by building our computers. That's something that not a lot of people do these days anymore, because it's not economically wise to do it anymore, or just the only people that build computers these days are people that have a very specific needs, like gamers, etc. And I've done a little bit of everything. I spent a lot of time doing support. I did a little bit of system administration. I work in security. So, and then now I have pivoted a little bit more into the instruction side. So I do hold a Bachelor of Science in Technical Management with a concentration in Business Information Systems and a master's degree in cybersecurity. I also currently hold the CISSP certification. We're going to be talking about that next week, specifically about certifications in different areas. So that's a cybersecurity certification. Um, so my current role here, again, is the Technical Training and Development Coordinator at the Ignite Hub. Little fun fact about me, I love to read everything and anything, and I'm a Trekkie. Basically, I'm a big Star Trek fan of all the movies, the series, etc. So that's who I am. Let's go next slide. Now let's talk about information technology versus computer science. That's the first part that we are going to be talking about today, because people sometimes confound and use these terms interchangeably, which they're really two very related fields, as we're going to see, but they're not necessarily the same thing. They are not. They are not actually. Each one are vast fields with unique differences, but they also cross over. So in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about, what are these fields? Yep. So as you can see, if you remember, your elementary school, middle school, those Venn diagrams, and as you can see, we have represented both information technology and computer science, but these two big circles, as you can see, there's this intersection in the middle because they are very related. So let's start talking about computer science, okay? And if you click, I think, okay, I'm sorry, we're going to start with IT or information technology. So IT focuses on the computers, the networks, and the data, basically, that traverse through those networks. And it deals about how you store, protect, process that data, okay, and transmit the data. So that's basically what it is. So when we say computers, actually, I think that is a little bit of a misnomer. I like to refer them these days as endpoints, because back in the day, the only way that you can access the internet and networks was by a computer, either a terminal, a client, etc. But these days, you access them to a lot of different devices. It could be a laptop, it could be a tablet, it could be a desktop computer, it could be your phone, and then there's different types of phones, etc. And then you can actually access it to other devices as well. So anything that is able to access, that data and everything that happens between the device and wherever you want to go back and forth, that is the realm of what the IT people do. So it sounds simple, but it's a lot of things, believe it or not. So that's kind of in a nutshell what IT is. Now let's talk a little bit about computer science. So on the other end, the computer science focuses on computer and programming, okay? And what that means is this is the people that actually creates the computers, the programming languages that are used on the IT side. So again, it's more about the architecture, it's about the actual foundation. So when you're talking about platforms, let's talk about, for example, Windows. Windows is an operating system, right? But it's also a platform because it requires a couple of different things. It requires a specific hardware, or rather specific processors that can understand those instructions. So that platform is one. And then you have other platforms, you have ARM, you have different things depending on the operating system or operating systems that can run that platform. Also, these particular platforms require programming languages. So to create those applications that can run on those systems, you need to write the specific instructions for this particular processor so the computer can understand what you're saying. And so it has to do more with the scientific part, with the foundational part. The other big difference is, like, usually computer science, or people that want to get into computer science, do require a degree. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, versus people that want to get into IT may not necessarily need a degree to start into the field, but the degree is always very helpful. All right, so that's kind of like, so you can start thinking about from like going to the right to the left. So the computer scientists create the computers, the processors, the languages, et cetera, the platforms that is being used by IT, which is the, and in all honestly, IT is a much bigger field. Here in this graphic, you see these two represented as equal circles, but IT is much bigger in the scope, believe it or not. So let's talk a little bit about the intersection. Okay. So yeah, if you click again, you can see again that's in a nutshell: computers, network security, and data, computation, algorithms, engineering, and AI. So theoretically, there could be a third circle, and some people will probably argue that data science is also a third circle. I think that data science is a subset of computer science. Yeah, but then again, that you may find that some people disagree with that. But in any case, as you can see in the intersection, you have programming, scripting software, and web development. That's the intersection because all the people that is creating these applications, these websites, or use this particular code or scripts in order to run IT efficiently is people, that probably have studied these programming languages. So that's the intersection of both of them. And this is the thing that computer scientists necessarily don't have to know everything about IT, or the people in IT doesn't necessarily need to know everything about computer science. But again, there's that intersection, and they are very related. One cannot exist with the other. Okay. And so we're going to be focusing today and in the next two sessions, mostly in careers in IT. There's going to be, again, a little bit of crossover with the computer science, especially when we talk about the software and web development on the third session. Again, because that involves knowledge of programming languages and how to do these kind of things. But also, like, scripting, coding, and programming are used in the IT field a lot. Actually, maybe you have used them and don't even realize it, but we're going to talk about that. All right, so if we go to the next slide, so let's talk now. Let's switch gears a little bit, and yeah, if we click again, I think why information technology. So the reason that you're here is because you're obviously have some kind of interest in getting into a career in IT, or you want to find out more about why people is recommending going to technology, going to technology. So let's talk about some of the reasons why information technology. First of all, again, we said that is a big field, so there's a multitude of career options, and that's what we're going to try to explain at a very high level today and in the next two sessions. Um, Booming job opportunities. That is probably the main reason why a lot of people is saying you should get into IT, is because a lot of these careers, and as we will see, a lot of these areas are growing tremendously. Okay, and even the areas that are not growing are still always hiring. So there's always a good opportunities in IT. Next one. And this is a little, again, little bit of a statistic. So, and this may be a little outdated, but the expected growth over the next 10 years is anywhere from 30 to 250% above the national averages. And we're talking about growth in IT careers. And depending on the career path, I can tell you right now that that bigger side, the 250, is going to be in three specific areas that we're going to be talking in the next couple of slides. Okay, the three hot areas right now, maybe four. All right, so next, financial security. This is the other reason why a lot of people is thinking about getting into a career either in computer science or IT, because a lot of these jobs pay relatively well. And, even as an entry level job, you can get some decent remuneration. And if you go up the chain, some of these jobs can really pay really well. Next one. So we have, this is the other part, that there's plenty of opportunities for in-person, remote, and hybrid work. Okay. So, and then again, there's some careers that that's not a possibility, right? That you have to be there all the time. Even though technology is making it possible for some careers, but there are other ones that you cannot, there's no way that you can work remotely or hybrid. So yeah, that's a great also is attractive for a lot of people. And last but not least is the innovation. I'm sorry, the last one is interesting as well. One more, the intersectionality of technology and other fields. And this is the big one. because and we're going to discuss this a little bit more in the next slide. That's huge, and again, is because now there is no field that does not require some level of technology to operate. And again, going back to the innovation, it's if you're the kind of person that likes to, always be in like what's coming up next, that kind of situation. But that's the IT industry. It's always changing. In the 20 years that I've been in the industry, I have seen so much change, and I cannot even predict uh, in reality like what's going to be in like in the next 10 years because things changes really quickly. So yeah, let's go to the next slide and let's talk about the last point. So what industries employ IT workers? And if you click again, pretty much everybody. And as you can see, like I mentioned before, you cannot have a company, a business, a school, a government without some level of technology. Everybody needs technology. I mean, let's be real. You cannot have even a small mom and pop shop these days. You cannot run a food truck without having some level of technology because you need to A, advertise it, B, being able to take electronic payments, and then you need to be able to also have your presence in social media, etc. So all these, even and that's small, everybody needs IT. And let's talking about these a little bit. Also, the lines are blurring in the sense that a lot of companies, you don't have to work in the IT department to be performing IT functions. So that's the other piece. You may not have a title, an IT title, but you may be doing a lot of functions that in the past were reserved exclusively to the IT people. So that line is also blurring. So the skills that we're going to be talking about maybe not necessarily will get you into the IT department in a company, but still you will require it for other positions. And we will explore that a little bit more. But again, it's everybody is using information technology these days. It's impossible not to have that and run a business or any type of just organization. So the next one, so yeah, what I told you, let's talk about the current and future trends. So there's four things right there, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And this is really what right now is driving that big growth into the IT industry. When we saw that 30 to 250%, these areas is what is driving that higher end of that range. So these are the three areas that are really hot right now. Cloud computing, okay? And the reason being is that more than 50% of organizations now use more than one cloud provider. And we are going to talk a little bit more about cloud when we get there today, a little bit, and then we're going to go way deeper next week. All right. So then the second one is cybersecurity, data protection and security. Cyber threats are growing in size and sophistication. We all know this. This is why now it has become a buzz term. This actually, the term cybersecurity is new, but the concept is not new. 20 years ago, it was not called cybersecurity. It was called information assurance by the government. It's still being called like that. But basically, it's what it is: protecting that data, making sure that only the people that need access have access, and it is not modified in any way, shape, or form. So, and then it's not stolen. So that's the big one. Okay. The next one is data analytics, and that is as well as huge. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, and definitely a lot more on week 3. And right now, the market relies heavily on data analysis to make those decisions, those business decisions. And there's so much data that is being collected that you have to make sense. You have to, first of all, see what is real, what is good and what is not good, and then you need to make sense of it. So that's why is driving, sorry, that that particular piece. And last but not least, the big thing in the past couple of years, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And this is still very much a question mark as far as like how much is this going to impact not only IT, but every single aspect of our lives, right? So we are relying more and more on this thing. And this is real. This is not a fad. I'm telling you, if you are thinking that this is, it's just a fad, that it will, go away in a couple of years. It's not. I can tell you right now that it's not. Uh, Actually, it's going to grow, as we're going to see in the next slide. Yep. So why? Why? Again, the impact of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Why? There's a couple of reasons. First of all, up until a couple of years ago, we had, okay, actually, let me go back a little bit. Artificial intelligence is a misnomer. Right now, we do not really have artificial intelligence. We have not reached that yet. What we have is basically machine learning, deep learning, large language models, stuff like that. But the term artificial intelligence encompasses all those technologies and what is yet to come. All right. Another thing before we, as you can see, there are sources in that slide, 1 and 2 at the bottom. Again, when you receive a copy of this presentation, you will be able to click on those links and find more information about these two particular areas. All right. So like I was saying, up until a couple of years ago, we did have forms of artificial intelligence because, Google, the search engine, in reality, it's a AI. Okay, it's a type of AI. We also had like Siri and stuff like that. But up until a couple of years ago, it was mostly like, okay, yeah, I can see the use on these things, and it was very useful. But the real impact came when I think ChatGPT 3.0 came to the market, and people realized, okay, this is no longer a gimmick. This thing can actually produce things. Okay, so that's generative AI. With the arrival of generative AI is when people, businesses started taking a lot more notice, and they're like, oh, this is serious. We can use this because this can actually produce something that, while not being perfect, it is a very good base that we can build upon. So, and why is that? Because AI boosts efficiency, minimizes human error, and saves cost. So let me be clear. AI, first of all, like I said, is not intelligence. Is not intelligent yet. So it's not more intelligent than humans. However, these things are more precise, okay? Because if you are, especially with repetitive tasks, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over as a human, chances are that you are gonna make some mistake down the line, okay? These guys don't make mistakes. If you tell them do A, B, C, D, F, and do it 10,000 times, they will do it without a mistake, okay? The other thing is, like, they can work 24/7, 365. They don't need to eat, they don't need to sleep. All right. So that is a huge incentive for a lot of companies that, I can have these things, these programs, these machines do this, in lieu of the humans. Yes. Uh, so some low level tasks are being replaced by AI and will continue to be replaced by AI. That's nothing that can stop that. The same way that the steam engine replace horses and carriages, and that's the same way. So that's why I said it's not coming back. Okay. And the second one is very, very interesting. So look at that. The generative AI market is expected to double every other year for the next 10 years. Let me put that into context. It doesn't mean that, it means that every year it doubles. So on year one is one, year two is two, year three is four, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, so forth and so on. In 10 years, your market is 1,000 times bigger than on year one. Okay. So right now, like I said, we started just testing the waters on what we can do and how companies can start using generative AI, to increase productivity and, yeah, let's be honest, to replace some functions, okay? And to contribute to research and development. So we still don't know what the impact is, but that is something that we need to take into perspective. And this is specifically why we put this slide here. I think that is something that we need to be very aware of and not be afraid, but rather embrace it. When change comes, you can either be prepared or be left behind. So this is what we're advocating here. So let's go to the next slide. So now let's talk a little bit about potential barriers and obstacles in getting to the IT field. So we've been talking a lot about how great the field is, how vast it is, and the reasons why we should get into IT, and how wonderful it is going to be. But in reality, there are barriers and obstacles to get into this field. We're trying to be very honest here. So, for your food of thought, what do you think are potential barriers? And what barriers have you experienced trying to get into this field? So, let's talk a little bit about that. Next slide, please. So, and there's a lot, as you can see there. So the first and foremost is like you're trying to apply for a job in IT. And if you go to like a posting and they're saying you need to have this, and 20 things, you go like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what this is. Okay. So it can be a little bit of like challenging in that sense. So they are asking for a lot of skills, and there's that skill gap. And we're going to talk both about hard and soft skills because they are equally important. 20 years ago, there was a big focus more on your hard skills. And when we say hard skills, that basically has to do with knowledge and how you apply that knowledge. But now the soft skills are being reviewed and asked a lot by employers in the same amount as those hard skills, sometimes even more. And why is that? Because it's great that you have the knowledge, but again, going back to what industries are using IT and everybody's using IT, this is no longer just people that has to deal with machines. Mostly you have to deal with other people. Okay, the machines are just tools, and that's just what people in the IT field do and deal with, but their main clients are not machines, are humans. And that's why that soft skills are so important. Then we have the lack of access to education or training. So we're very blessed here in Montgomery County that we have Montgomery College has three campuses. And it's great. And then there's a lot of technical training centers, and there's a lot of opportunities, really. But there are other parts of the country or of the world that, your nearest education center may be 30, 40, 2 hours away. So that may be that. And the next one, the lack of funds, because, it is expensive it can be expensive to pay for these courses sometimes for these degrees, certifications, etc. So that could be that. Now also is the lack of time, and this is true especially for adult learners or people that already have other commitments, other responsibilities, or people that already have a full-time job but are trying to switch into IT. Okay, and it could be I just don't have enough time. I have a full-time job, I have a family, I have another part-time job. So when do I have the time or the discipline to study? Okay, lack of sufficient resources at home. Maybe you don't have adequate internet connection. You don't have a great computer. And the next one, the isms, they're not discussed a lot. And while that has gotten a little bit better, but they're still a thing, not only in IT, but in a lot of different careers. So ageism, sexism, and, unfortunately, IT used to be the realm of males and a particular demographic. It's getting better. We're seeing more women now. We're seeing a lot more demographic change, but I think that still IT is still does not represent the population at large. Okay, more people is starting to get into the field, and that's great. The other piece could be the lack of confidence. Again, because this could be a little overwhelming. It could be a little, honestly, uh, prideful when you are trying to get into the field because there's so many different terms, things that you may not even know. It's like talking a different language. So your thing may be like, am I too old? I'm not good in math or science. I don't understand what this word means. I don't want to sound like I'm a complete, person that has no knowledge, which is exactly the next one, lack of experience, certification of education. And this is huge. I want to talk a little bit about this because unfortunately, while the field is great, you to get into the field, you need a combination of things. You need to have a combination of education and experience. Those are the big ones. Okay, so and you can show your education. We're going to talk a little bit about that by showing a degree or a certification or courses that you have taken, or just because you can talk about the thing. Okay, so you have the knowledge, but then they ask you for experience, and it's like, do you have how many? And a lot of these postings, we require somebody has 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years of experience in this particular skill. And it's like, wow, I just spent 4 years getting a degree. Yeah, I have zero experience, but now what I do. So it's kind of hard to do both things at the same time. And that's one of the biggest barriers to get into the field, to be honest with you. That's the number one thing that I hear from people that are trying to get into the field. I have the certification, I have the degree, I have the knowledge, I don't have the experience. So how do I gain the experience? We're going to talk a little bit about towards the end of this presentation. And last but not least, don't know where to start. And we're hoping that these presentations help you a little bit with that, because again, it can be overwhelming. You do a Google search, it's like, okay, how do I become a network engineer? And 10,000 things come at you, and half of them you don't understand. It's like, oh, where do I start? Should I even start? So we're trying to demystify that a little bit. All right, so that was a lot. Let's go to the next slide. So with that, again, we're going to talk about those baseline, and I want to, really hone in that word baseline. Okay, so baseline is basically the minimum hard skills that companies are requiring to get into IT. And this is, again, this is just, we're going to talk a little bit about those. And again, it's a question for you guys. What do you think are the skills, both hard and soft, that are required for a career in the IT field? And that, how, most important, how do you conduct an inventory of your skills? We're going to talk a little bit about that. So we go to the next slide. So let's talk about, first of all, those hard technical skills. And then again, this is not an extensive list of everything that you need, but it's, again, what we recommend that you have at the very minimum, and again, your knowledge doesn't have to be very deep, but you have to have at least foundational or baseline knowledge in the following areas. Okay, troubleshooting. First of all, that's what all IT is about. It's just troubleshooting. Okay, troubleshooting means you are presented with a problem. You need to figure out what is causing it, how to remedy it, and then how to improve it in the future. Okay, and again, it sounds easy, but it's a skill that requires a lot of practice and that you get better at it with time. That is something that, is very hard at the beginning, but as you start seeing patterns and you start getting better at it. But that's something that is very important. So you have to have at least a knowledge of or an idea of how to troubleshoot a problem and how to address it, most importantly. And then hardware. And then hardware, I mean, that word covers so many different things. And it can be very specific. You don't need to know about everything because there's so much hardware being used in information technology. And we just talked about some of the endpoints by themselves: computers, cell phones, tablets, servers, desktops, laptops. It's Then let's not even talk about printers and all the hardware for networking. It's just, switches and routers and firewalls and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot. You don't need to know everything. And by no means I'm telling you that you need to know everything, because there's a lot to learn and you learn as you go, but you need to have foundational knowledge of at least an idea. If I throw you a word, what is a firewall? What does a firewall do? Okay. What is a processor? What is RAM? So again, you don't need to go very deep, but you need to understand that. The next one is important: operating systems. And again, because everything runs on some kind of operating system, and again, we just listed some of the most, the most popular ones: Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, Linux, etc. Uh, so you need to be not just how to navigate, but be a little bit of a power user, being able to troubleshoot a lot of different situations. When I was in support, most of the calls were actually not actual problems, but they were more like, how do I do this? Okay. Um, and again, you can Google it, but a lot of people just call, says, hey, I am trying to, insert a column on an Excel spreadsheet. How do I do that? Okay. Which it's a great segue into my next point, which is Office software. And by far and most, the most used productivity software suite used is Microsoft's Office, and right now is Office 365. The version that is mostly being used by a lot of institutions. So again, you need to understand which one of these different things do Word and Excel and PowerPoint. And there's other of, by the way, there's a lot of other Office suites, productivity software. Mac has their own productivity suite, and then there's other clones of Microsoft products. There's LibreOffice, and there's, anyways, but you need to understand which one of these different things do and some of the commonalities. The other one, again, is foundational knowledge about networks and security. And again, you don't have to have a deep knowledge, but having a knowledge of how computer networks work, even if it's a very high level, it's very important because that helps you with the first point. When you're troubleshooting, you need to understand where the problem lies. Is it in the laptop? Is it in my network? Where is it? So you need to understand at the very high level. And security, again, because now cybersecurity is no longer an add-on, it's something that you think afterwards, it's something that now is always something. When you're building something, you have to start building it with security it, in mind. And then other software, and that's huge because other software can be a lot of different things, specific pieces of software for specific jobs and stuff. So again, that's very general, but that's some of the stuff that are like very important for people to have. Let's go to the next slide, and we're going to talk about the soft skills, the one I was talking about. And then again, going back to the fact that we are really, even though we are dealing with technology, with machines, with software, with hardware, with networks, with equipment, at the end of the day, our clients are people. And this is the reason why they are asking more and more for these skills. Communication, good communication, both written and verbal. Organization, super important in IT. Why is that? Because IT, usually most jobs in IT is not like you are sitting in a desk and waiting for something to come. Sometimes 10 things come at you at the same time. So you need to figure out which one do I need to take care of first? What can I take care of later? So you need to organize yourself. So being able to, so you can address all these issues. Analysis, and that is huge because it's you cannot do troubleshooting without being able to analyze something. When you have a problem, okay, so analysis is that process that goes into a lot of things that we do. We do a lot of analysis consciously and unconsciously, but when it comes to doing it at your job, and especially in information technology, is being able to look at the information that you have and make a case for it, for lack of a better term. The other one is learning and research. And this is huge. I'm telling you, as I showed at the beginning, I've done a bit of schooling, but everything that I've learned, I can honestly say that about 50 to 60% I learned in school. The other part, I had to learn it by myself. So you need to be able to learn and research a lot of these things yourself, okay? So there's a new technology, something coming up, or you need to find about something. You need to have a methodology that you go and you look for the thing and then you quickly understand what it is so you can learn yourself. So you have to be a self-learner. And last but not least, that's the interpersonal relationships, that again, that is goes hand in hand with the communication. Yeah, communication can be via an email, but interpersonal is when you're interacting with other people. All right. So as you can see at the bottom, it says that hard skills are essential to getting noticed. Yeah, those certifications, those degrees, whatever it is. But the soft skills are the key to advancement on any industry. And again, I cannot reiterate this enough. Companies are more. We had uh, a group of people here, actually members of local chambers of commerces from the area here at the hub about a year ago, and talking about jobs in the tech industry. And the number one thing that they said that their companies, the companies were asking is soft skills. That a lot of people come with a lot of knowledge, but they are not able to communicate properly. They're not able to really work in an environment when they need to have that exchange of information with other people. So, with that said, let's go back. No, I'm sorry. I mean, let's go back into thinking how now. How do you do uh, a skill assessment, right? Because we have talked about a lot about skills. You know, the easiest way to do a skill assessment is if you go. Let's say that you're looking for a specific job, right, in IT or whatever it is. You go to sites like LinkedIn or Indeed, to any career website, and then you start looking at these different jobs. So look at 3 4 5 jobs in your area on the target job that you want, and then start looking at what they're asking, both in hard and soft skills, right? And then you're going to start seeing some commonalities. Yeah, some are going to be a little different, but look at the commonalities. Okay, and then just take that. Okay, so I look at the 5 different jobs and I found these 4 hard skill sets that they're asking and these 3 or 4 soft skills. Then you go and you make an honest assessment with yourself and say, do I possess this skill? Do I possess this skill? Do I possess this skill? And again, do not get discouraged, because it is really hard to deflate yourself when you see, oh man, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. The next question is how you're going to acquire those things, or how can you, or a lot of the times we dismiss ourselves in the sense of saying, I don't have that skill. Think really hard. You might have that skill, maybe not in an IT environment, but you do have that skill. So how can you talk about applying that skill to this other job, right? So that's transferable skills. There's a lot of them. So that's how you conduct any skills, and that's how you see how ready you are for applying for that job, or what are your gaps, so you can start filling those gaps. Next slide, please. So again, this we can have a discussion if anybody wants to participate, either here in person or online, or you can take these and for your own personal reflection. So out of what was covered in this section, what stood out for you? What was it? Was it the skills that I need? Was it like, the difference between IT and computer science? What was it? And then again, going back to those skills, what hard and soft skills you currently have and which ones you need to improve or acquire, okay? All right, let's move on unless somebody has any comments. Good? All right, we can move on. All right, so this is the second part of this presentation. My apologies. And we're going to talk about the potential career path. Before we go to the next slide, if you ask 10 different people in IT, you're going to have 10 different answers to ask how many paths are in IT. Okay. Some people will tell you, oh, there's 50. Some people say there's 5. Some people can tell you it's 15. Everybody's right and everybody's wrong at the same time. It's one of those things that, you can really, it depends on how granular you want to go. In the next slide, uh, we have determined, or rather, we are taking a cue from CompTIA. Next slide, please. About, and we think that there are 6 main career paths, okay, within IT. And this is what we're going to be talking about today and in the next couple of weeks. All right. So we're going to be talking about support, careers in support. And then we have the networking piece, okay, the people that deals with the networks, the cybersecurity people, the data specialists, the data analysts, the data scientists, software and web developers. Some people will separate those two, but the skill set is so similar that it makes sense to just put them together, even though you can choose one path or the other. And then people that is doing cloud. Now, these are not exclusives. Here, it appears that they are silos, all right? And in some organizations, they may be, but there's a lot of crossover. For example, let me give you a good example here. The cybersecurity. Cybersecurity in a small company, they may not have a dedicated security group. But let me tell you, they are thinking about security. But the people that is doing security may be the networking people, securing the network, and the support specialists, because by securing, hardening, the endpoints. Um, and again, the software and web developer, like I was saying, 20 years ago, we used to build a system, build a network, build an application. And then afterwards, we were like, okay, now it's built. Now let's see how we can secure it. Now that's no longer the case. You need to, whenever you start building something, you have to start building it with security in mind. It cannot be an afterthought anymore because the threats are so big that you cannot secure it afterwards. You will spend more time trying to reverse engineer a lot of things than if you started thinking about security from the get-go and how. So the people these developers either need to have the knowledge in security or consult with people. So that's those intersections. The same thing with cloud. Cloud, it's an data. How do you secure this? So cyber is huge because in reality it could be its own thing, but it also applies to the whole field. So, and again, network, as we're gonna see, these are the unsung heroes, man. Probably most of you have never, unless you are in the field, you probably have never met or really know a lot of the people that those support the networks in your organizations. But without them, there's nothing. The internet is a network. So network is how all the magic that happens when you are in a browser and then you go Google and said, New York Times, and you click OK. So all the magic that happens between what you click and what appears in your screen, all that traverses, all that information, it goes all through the network. So that's huge. So, anyways, let's start talking about these different paths. Next slide, please. So when we talk about these areas, we're going to be looking at the two things. We're going to be talking about the common functions and also some example job titles, okay? And we're going to talk about like what is the most emblematic one. So support, again, it is huge. Believe it or not, support is big, is a big part of IT departments everywhere. And most likely you have at some point have had interactions with an IT support person. So maybe when you call the help desk, so you were talking to a support person. Maybe when somebody came to give you a new laptop or exchange your laptop or to fix your printer or because you had an issue and they came to fix it. Uh, Maybe when you needed a new application installed, you have interacted with some sort of support technician. So let's look at the common functions. First of all, listen to customer descriptions of issues. And again, that's the emblematic job here is the entry level job here is your help desk specialist, okay? And we all have interacted with one of these, you know, um, people at some point, again, because you had to call to reset your password or because you had an issue. Um, and that is considered honestly the entry level job in IT. You don't have to, I never did that. I did start and I spent a lot of time doing support, but I honestly started doing tier two support mostly and then went to a little bit of tier three support. But a lot of people start with the help desk, okay? And so listen to customer descriptions of issues. So, and you also probably have done this within your families. Who doesn't have a grandmother, an uncle, your mom, or maybe even a sibling that is like, can you help me? I don't know how to use this app. How do I install this application? So that is basically what support is. But as you can imagine, most people is not going to call and is going to describe the problem in technical terms. They're going to describe the problem in either A, what we will call lay terms or whatever, like regular language, or B, they will use the incorrect terms when they're trying to use the technical term. All right. Um, so while it sounds like it's like an easy thing, it is not because you have to listen really, really hard and ask the correct questions. Okay, you have to do a deep listening. So when the customer is telling you this is my problem, do not jump to conclusions. Oh, I know what it is. Guess what? I have done that. Everybody has done that. Guess what? Most of the time you're wrong. You really need to listen to the whole situation. Even though you're ready in your mind, you start having that, oh, it may be this, it may be this, it may be this. Listen to the whole problem and start asking the good questions. So it is a skill set that is not easy, believe it or not. And again, it gets better as you go. Then the second one is after you have listened, now you diagnose the problem. So what can it be? Okay. Is the problem in, is hardware, is software, is it the browser, is it the network? What is it? So you start diagnosing, which is the troubleshooting piece. Okay. It's the next one. Problem solve or troubleshoot those issues. Okay, so now you need to start determining what the problem is, and let me tell you, it's a lot of trial and error. A lot of these, it's sometimes you arrive to the conclusion right away to the problem. Sometimes it is not what you thought it was, so you need to, try a couple of different things. So now you have determined what the problem is. Now, how am I going to fix it? Okay, how long is it going to take? Can I do it by myself? Do I need help from other people? Okay. And again, sometimes it's just like I mentioned, set up and repair computer workstations and other devices, and install, configure hardware and software. So again, these are some common functions. We talk a little bit about help desk. Tier two, basically, so when you call the help desk, they're trying to, probably they're going to go to a specific script. Have you rebooted your computer? Have you done this? Have you done that? Yes, yes, I've done that. So, or they may be able, maybe half of the time they're able to resolve your issue and said, okay, thank you for calling. You're done. You're good. But sometimes they cannot. Why? Because usually you call the help desk, right? So they may be in the building next to you. They may be in another city. They may be in another state. They may be in another country. So if they determine that somebody has to physically go to where you are, that's a tier two support technician. Okay. Well, as you can see, field service sometimes is also considered on that tier. But the tier two support specialist is somebody that needs to go determine the problem and sometimes work in a little bit higher functions. And tier three, it's mostly when it's somebody that is taking care of a whole organization. So a help desk specialist, usually the ratio of those is like you you take care of like one to one, and then you try to help people one at a time. And tier two, sometimes you're working on more complex projects, not only resolving issues, but working on projects. You're working on replacement projects, or you're working on deployments, or you're working with other departments within IT. All right. So, and the tier three again is like when you are looking at the whole organization. So this is the people that, sometimes they are also very remote. A lot of them, sometimes they can be in another city or they can be in another country. And if you have an issue, they are able to remote to your computer and either troubleshoot it, or they be able to uh, send or push an application or an update or something like that. So that is IT support. And again, it's big, it's huge, it's considered entry level at the help desk specialist, but there are tier two and tier three supports that require a lot more experience, a lot more knowledge, and so that's all right. Let's move on to the next one. And that's networking again. I already talked a little bit about this, and let's talk about some of the common functions. This is the people that, let me first of all, let me start on the second one. I'll come back to the first one in a moment, but ensure the network is functional and secure. Again, making sure that that invisible things, all the things that happen, continue to be invisible to the user. That's what you want. As a person that works in networking, you don't want the user to know everything that happens in your realm. Honestly, you don't. A good networking group is that networking group that you never know it exists, because they usually work with other groups within IT and with leadership and stuff like that, but you don't see them a lot. All right. But they are so important because they ensure that the network is functional and secure. Okay. And again, the next one, ensure the secure transfer of data. Okay. It's not just let's make sure that it's fast, that it's reliable, that it's efficient, but that data is being transported in a secure manner, in a secure way. So it's not, it's not grabbed in transit, it's not, uh, you know, changed in transit, it's not stolen in transit. Okay. So, and then let's go down. Also, the last one says optimize network performance. Okay. Again, that is huge because The what happens in the networks, it takes milliseconds. We are really, really spoiled these days that we when we hit click and then automatically immediately, even without in a blink of an eye, you get that website back. That wasn't always the case. This is possible now because of the huge amount of speed that we have available, the networks, the modern networks that we have today. But for people of my vintage, we remember dial-up network, and that was painful. All right, so it was very slow, it was very limited. So these days, so we're trying to optimize, even make that faster. And remember that now we have 100-fold devices than one we had like 10 years ago. So all these devices are connected and are requiring fast data connection. So how do you serve all these different devices at the same time and making sure that it's fast, it's reliable, it's secure? Is a gargantuan task. Let's talk about the other two. Let's start with the support internal servers and network devices. Again, even though a lot of these servers are now being moved to the cloud, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute when we reach the cloud piece. But there's a lot of internal servers within in networks, So this is the people that actually take care of those servers. Again, that should be invisible to most people, uh, but they take care of these things, all right? They make sure that you can access that particular system. You can access that particular file that is in a storage server, all right? And last but not least, that backup your network data. So in reality, it is data is going to be lost, okay, for a lot of different reasons. Maybe it was somebody deleted a file that they were not supposed to delete. Maybe it was because somebody maliciously changed the file. Maybe because there was some kind of natural disaster. Maybe it was a failure on the server. So the server, the file server, maybe it went down. So all those files disappear, right? So backups are so important. In reality, for most business, you are as good as your last backup. If there's some kind of disaster, either be a cyber attack, either be something like something nature related, like a hurricane or something like that, or your equipment just gets fried, you are as good as your last backup. Okay, so that is huge. Okay, data is the most important, the most valuable thing for a business these days. You can have all this money invested in these networks, in these endpoints, in all these devices, but at the end of the day, they are worthless and meaningless. They are just paperweights without the data. Data is the most important thing. So that's why backing up the data is so important. So let's talk about some job titles. Again, the entry-level job for this particular category is network support technician. The marquee job is the network engineer, and then a higher level job from that is the network administrator. You have your systems administrator and your system engineers is the people that kind of take care of that support internal servers and network devices and the backup piece. Those last two, the first three kind of go with the other three over here, if that makes sense. All right, let's go to the next one. And we are getting always close to our, I'm gonna take a small break in a minute. Okay, so cybersecurity, huge and near and dear to my heart. So let's first of all talk about some of the common functions. Okay, so there's a lot of things that the cybersecurity people do. And again, this is nothing is new. It's just a lot of emphasis has been given to security in the past 10 years uh, because again, the threat level and the motivations. We're going to dissect this a little bit more next week, but let's just talk a little bit about some of the common functions. Okay, so conduct vulnerability assessments. Again, as you have heard probably to say, you are as strong as your weakest link. And that's exactly what this is. You're trying to find your weak links. Where is that you are most vulnerable? So there's a ton of ways that you can conduct these, but you're trying to find those weak links, okay? These because this is exactly what the hackers are looking, because this is the easiest way to get into your network. So where are they trying? Where are my entry points, okay, that they can really breach me in, all right? Then detect those cyber threats, and that's constantly. You're always scanning, you're always monitoring what's happening. And if something is out of the norm, it just, you have this baseline. and you're seeing all this traffic and you're like, okay, okay, that looks good. And then something, an alarm comes up. You need to go and investigate. Okay. So evaluate those security controls. You go like, okay, this thing's telling you that there's a potential attack. You need to go and look at it. Is it a real attack or is it like a false positive? Okay. So what's happening here? And that constantly monitoring that network traffic. The next one is investigate security breaches. When you're in cybersecurity, there's two things that you take for granted. One is not if, but when I'm going to get attacked. Okay. So I don't know anybody in cybersecurity that has, oh, I'm never going to get breached. That's not anybody that really knows in cyber. They will never tell you I will never get breached. So when you get breached, two things: investigate. How did this happen? How long it's been happening? And the next part is how fast can I recover from this? Remediation. First of all, investigating. How did it happen? Let's cut it. Let's stop it. And then now let's remediate. Let's try to undo the damage if possible. Sometimes it's not possible 100%, to be honest. And then another big piece is advise staff and management on safe practices. Okay, so uh, this is a big piece because unfortunately, one will think that the biggest threat to your organization is that typical hacker with a hoodie, hunched over, maybe some other parts of the world. In reality, the biggest threat to your organization is your own users. Sometimes, most of the time, because they don't know what they're doing, or because they get bamboozled, they get social engineered, they click on the wrong link, and they get convinced that it's their boss that is telling them to transfer $10,000. Um, so that is part of that, the education piece. And sometimes there are malicious attackers, internal attackers within your network. So you need to kind of advise your staff and your management. This is how you improve our security posture. So now let's talk a little bit about job titles. And as you can see, there's a ton there. What I try to and that's just a small sample. What I try to illustrate in that list is a couple of different things. First of all, security is not one thing. Like I said, when most people think cybersecurity, they think of two things: the hacker, on the one end trying to attack you, and then you have the defender, and you think the defender is like in that state-of-the-art center with all those big screens monitoring, and looks like a war room. Yeah, that's part of cybersecurity, and that's basically your security analyst, and that's what is considered your entry-level job in cyber. But there's a ton of different things that are within cyber. Okay, so for example, one interesting one is a penetration tester. Penetration tester is basically, or pen tester, is what we call a white hat hacker. Basically, is somebody that you hire to try to hack you. The difference is like this person will hack you, and then they will come back and say, this is how I hacked you. Okay, this is where I found your vulnerabilities. This is what you need to change. Instead of the black hat hacker that just comes and steals your information and then, or ransomwares you, and then they just try to say, okay, give me 3 Bitcoins in order for me to give you the key to decrypt your data. No. So that is basically somebody that you hire to hack you, but they will tell you what did they do, what did they find. Malware analyst is basically somebody that it's reverse engineers viruses and all these trojans, et cetera, et cetera. So they look at it, they reverse engineer. So they're basically programmers. They just look at the code and then they look at different things. Oh, so this line is supposed to do this. This is what they're trying to do. So you reverse engineer it so you can find the antivirus, the solution, the patch. And cryptology is another interesting one because cybersecurity is based, there will be no cybersecurity without encryption. And encryption is a huge field. But at the end of the day, encryption is nothing more than complex mathematical operations, very complex mathematical operations. So the different encryption methods that we have, so a cryptologist both try to create more hack resistant encryption methods, or B, they are trying to break, existing encryption methods. Data forensics, again, just like their counterparts in investigations, that when there's a crime scene, there's these people, the forensic analysts that go and look and collect fibers and, blood and other things, to make the case. Same thing now, a lot of crimes are committed using digital devices. So these people is people that is trained and to not only gather, collect, and process that information, but it can be presented in a court of law. All right. Compliance analyst. I put this one because that's what I was doing when I was in cybersecurity. And a lot of people don't think of this as part of cybersecurity. So there's a lot of different laws, regulations that had to do with, the data, with securing the data, either the customer data or the credit card data, whatever. And that's exactly what I was working here at the college. So you need to comply with that. And a lot of these things fall in the security department because it has to do how this data is being protected. Okay, and the last two I put in there because these titles, honestly, they did not exist 20 years ago. And these are titles that have been created due to the need that this new and renewed focus on security has brought to companies. So as you can see, the last one, the Chief Information Officer or CISO, is a C-level officer that it reports either or most organizations directly to the CEO or directly to the CIO. All right, so it's a very high level position within most companies, which is again the person responsible for the security posture of the organization. So let's go to the next slide. And I believe that we are going to take a break. So we're going to pause the recording and then we're going to take a 5-minute break. So it's 7:06. We'll be back at 7:11, both in person and in line for the next part of our presentation. All right, welcome back, everyone. And let's continue moving on because we still have a lot of things to cover. So next slide, please, Anthony. Thank you. So let's talk about data. And again, we talked a little bit about these at the beginning, and we're definitely going to be covering these on the third session a lot more. So when we talk a lot about the functions, the first thing that I want to say is like data mining. So let's start with that one. Just like the name suggests, mining data is very similar to like mining, for example, gold. Okay. So what you do is when you're mining for gold, you just take like, let's say you're digging gold in a mountain or in a riverbed, whatever. You start taking huge amounts of material and then you need start sifting and find those little nuggets that are hidden. So there's tons of dirt and maybe a couple of kilograms of gold, right? Same thing with data mining. Data mining is just collecting data. And trust me, we are collecting data a lot. We are producing data like never before in human history. We produce more data in one day than all the data combined that we produce in the first 5,000 years of human civilization. Think about that. And that's every day. All right. So, but then again, like the mining, not all that is gold. All right. So the data analysis, again, is finding those little nuggets of gold. So now those are the good data. The rest is trash, honestly. All right. And then I'm going to leave data governance to the end because after you have now the data that you want, the data that is valuable, then you need to go to a statistical analysis. What is that? You start looking for trends. Basically, you go like, okay, you start looking for patterns. All right. And with that, you go to predictive modeling. So now you can say, so when you, first of all, you collect that data and you look at, okay, so let me just give you an example. So we determine that, this particular vehicle, this particular model is being sold to this particular demographic. So most of the people buying this particular car is going to be males between, I don't know, 25 and 40. This other particular model is selling better to females within like 35 to 50 years old. So that's your data. So and then your statistical analysis. So you're still looking at trends. But now your predictive modeling is when you say, okay, looking at this data that we have and this statistical analysis, we can predict that we are going to sell X number of this particular model in the next quarter. Why is that important? First of all, because A, you want to produce a good number of vehicles, so your supply, meets the demand, and B, so you don't have overstock because now you are, oh my gosh, now we produced way too many of these vehicles. Now we need to sell them at discount. So that is just one example of how that works. The data governance piece is how do you manage that data? And there's a lot of regulations on that too, because again, going back to the part that we are producing so much data, which by the way, that is the currency we are paying a lot of these companies. Um, Again, for people of my vintage, we used to pay for email. You probably guys go like, what? Google is free. Yeah, we used to pay for having an email, and it was ridiculous. We used to pay with real American dollars for, to have an email account, and it was just a ridiculous small inbox. It was like 100, I don't know, megabytes, not gigabytes, 100 megabytes, and there were different tiers. So you pay like $20 a month, and adjusted for inflation, now that'll be like $40 a month. I don't know. But we used to pay to have this. Now Google offers you not only an email, you can have two or three of those, but it also gives you a storage and gives you this and that. It's like crazy. So how is this free? It's not free. You are paying them with your data. Okay. So they're mining that data. They are collecting all that data so they can sell it to other people. That's how they have become one of the most valuable companies in the world. And that's just one example. I have nothing against Google. I use a lot of their services. I've been using them for years. Uh, but this is exactly what it is. This is the new goal. That data is so valuable, all right? So, but in the same token, a lot of data that we produce has a lot of personal identifiable information. So these companies are now obligated to protect that data or to dispose of this data, or how long do they keep this data and who does this data belong to. So there's been a lot of regulations, especially now, for example, in the European Union. You as the user are, honestly, you are the owner of that data, and if you want to request to this company, you can say Google or Microsoft, what data have you collected from me? They are obliged to provide you what data they have collected. Can you delete it? No, because you provided it willingly. That was in the EULA when you signed this thing that that you just scroll, said I accept. Well, they got you there. They said, yeah, that data is yours, but it's ours. We're keeping it. I cannot give it back to you. I cannot delete it. It's mine to do with what I need, etc. So anyway, so that data governance piece. And again, I think that the data analyst is the kind of the marquee job here, but you have architects and engineers and scientists. And the last one is I put it right there because that was the only data job that it was 20 years ago available, the DBA or your database administrator. We still have those, but now it has grown into a completely different field. Next slide, please. Software and web development. And this is, again, let's start again. We put these two together because the common functions are very much the same. And it's meet with clients to discuss needs. It's either we are trying to create this app or we're trying to create this website, and then modify or create software programs or websites, okay? Design, create application systems or websites, and then write programming code or modify that programming code. And again, so you have those titles here: software developer, web designer, computer programmer, coder. Okay. So before we move on, I just want to make a little difference because a lot of people use the word developer and coder or programmer as being interchangeable, and they're not. A developer, either a web or a software developer, make a lot more money than a programmer because the programmer only does the engineering part. They are sometimes very, very expert in a specific language or languages, so they can build these websites, these applications. But the developer is the person that oversees the two sides of the coin: the design and the engineering. Okay, so that's why they develop the whole thing. Okay, and sometimes they have knowledge in one or the other or both, sometimes they use people in one or the other side. But a developer is the person who does the whole thing, and that's why they are, different from a programmer or a designer. Okay, next slide, please. Cloud. So again, let's talk about some of the common functions here, and it's going to be determine what the needs, the cloud needs of your organization. Okay, and then before we even continue, why is cloud being so big? And then again, we're going to explore this more on the third session. But the reason is that, as we explained at the beginning, every organization now requires to have some level of technology. Now, with that said, even a small mom and pop shop needs technology. What they don't have the expertise or the budget is to have their own IT department. So they need to outsource this. So when we talk about the cloud is again is kind of like a bad term, and we'll talk about how they came to this term cloud. But in reality, cloud is any IT service that you are outsourcing, that you are not developing in-house, that somebody else is doing for you, either be Amazon or Google or Microsoft or Oracle or anybody else or Netflix and all that. So that's the stuff that you are not developing or stuff that you do not have it yourself. It's just that it's somewhere else in their networks and you access them to an application or to a browser. And it could be anything from an application, a service, it could be a system, it could be a network. So again, there's a lot of different things. So different means why companies are going to that. Again, because you don't have the expertise, the budget to buy, deploy, maintain IT systems. Okay, let somebody else do it for you. You just buy. And the other great thing about cloud is that this is most of these models are pay as you go. So if you use, if you need IT services for only 8 people, you just pay for those 8 people. Okay, if you need cloud services just for yourself, you just pay for yourself. If you need it for 200, you pay for 200. It is really hard to, to predict how many people you're going to need. So it's elastic. So you can say today, I need 100 of these things. And then tomorrow you just, whoa, you want a huge contract with the government. Now you need 300 more. Instead of having to buy all that equipment and now put it somewhere and hire the extra people, you just say, hey, can you give me 300 more licenses? And they go, oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's very elastic. So that's why a lot of companies are going to this model. And all companies are using these days some kind of cloud technology. So, number one, you need to determine the needs for the cloud, for the organization. What is that we need? What is the best product, the best service that to fill that particular need? And then you need to manage how that data. Now your data is not only on your network. Your data resides here and a little bit in Amazon and a little bit in Microsoft. So how you manage the access to all that data and make sure that it's secure, ensure that the systems components can root smoothly and how do you secure the data? And then you need to maintain that connectivity. So people, again, this should be transparent to the user. Doesn't matter if that file is in your internal network or maybe it's in AWS or maybe is in Azure. So to them, it shouldn't matter. So, but you as the cloud person needs to make sure that the access is correct and also secure. So again, cloud specialist is usually the marquee job in this area, but still an old systems engineer, again, that's a little bit of like, legacy type of situation. But cloud architect, cloud engineer, and we're gonna go delve deeper into what these titles do and a little bit more in the third session. Let's go to the next slide. And this is a bonus. We added this because this is, again, new and becoming, a lot of companies are now creating titles, as you can see, for artificial intelligence. As you can see, the functions are exactly the same as in the cloud: determine, manage, maintain, and ensure, but you determine the organizational needs. What is that you are trying to accomplish with that AI? And then which is the best model that you have to use it? Then you manage. You need to manage that language model and maintain that language model proficiency. These things get better as they learn more and more. So you need, the only way to maintain is making sure that the data that you're feeding it is what you want to speak. Because at the end of the day, these things, the only thing that they know is whatever data set you give them. If you give them this much data set, this is the breadth of their knowledge. They think that this is the whole universe. If you give them this much, that's the whole universe. So is what kind of data you're giving them and curating that. And then ensuring again the service, the systems run smoothly, all the components that is transparent to the user. But some of these titles, again, prompt engineer. Prompt engineer is basically a programmer for AI. It's you need to ask AI the right questions to get the right results. And that's a prompt. You need to finesse the question that you're asking AI. If you ask AI a very general question, I guarantee you that it's going to give you a very general and most of the time incorrect or garbage answer. So a prompt engineer is the person that creates those prompts. So you can say, give me this to provide a better, a more filter, a better product so you can build upon it. Um, AI implementation specialist, again, we're trying to do AI in our company. How can we do that? How can we make sure that it works with our different systems? Language model trainers, that is, again, how do you maintain and make sure that this gets better? Last but not least, ethical AI specialists. And this is huge. We're gonna, that on itself is a session, is like how to use AI ethically. There's a lot of concerns right now about biases in AI. Second, the veracity of AI produced information. Third, there's a lot of like right management and copyright management within AI. Is it ethical for me to just give these? So give proper credit to the artists. So it's a lot of things that we're still. This is a little bit right now, kind of the Wild West, and we'll see how this develops. All right, let's go to the next slide because we still have a lot to cover. Salary. Uh, Before we go to the next slide, I'm just going to I just want to specify when you see those numbers what they mean. Okay, first of all, they're median salaries. They might also be very dependent on location. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. All right, so first of all, this data is compiled from CompTIA again, and this is basically the midpoint. The midpoint meaning that this is the uh, the middle point between somebody that is just getting into the field and somebody that has had some experience in the field. The other thing that this is across the board. So this takes into consideration people having this job in Silicon Valley, which will be highly paid, or New York, or even here in this area, which is a high cost of living area, and maybe some more rural area, in Kansas or whatever. But so your mileage may vary. What I'm going to tell you right now is that these numbers, for example, for the IT support specialist, that $50,000 a year median salary in this area, that's not, that will only be if you're doing an entry level, desk, I'm sorry, help desk specialist, an entry level in this area. Any support technician should be with some kind of 2 3 years of experience should be making $60,000 $75,000. I've seen support technicians making over $100,000. The other thing that we did not discuss is like all these different areas, there's management involved, all right? And obviously management makes more money. So network specialist, again, a network engineer in this area should be making around $100,000. That should be the median salary. That may be the entry level point for a network support technician, which is less than a network engineer. Cybersecurity in this area, again, with a couple of years experience, and that could be the entry level salary for an analyst. High other positions, cybersecurity is going to make a lot more money depending on what the title is. Data, again, for a data analyst in this area, that sounds more or less right. Software and web developers, again, your mileage may vary, but that sounds about right. And cloud sounds about right in this area. Again, at entry level, you can make a lot more money than that. But at the beginning, you're not going to make any of this money, all right? It's going to take a couple of years to reach the amounts that I quoted you. And then again, they're very dependent on the region and the market, all right? And I'm going to be honest with you, and then I'm going to plug in something that is coming up here in the hub. If you are interested in a career in IT, we are going to have next month, right? Next month, we're going to have, no, yes, next month, we are going, and I encourage you to, we're going to have another series of workshops and by Jonathan Corrales, and it's going to be about specific tech jobs in the DC metro area. It's going to be very enlightening as far as like, and I'm going to give you a little heads up. It's tough right now. It's tough. It's tough, but Jonathan can give you some good pointers as how you can improve your chances of landing a job. All right. Next slide, please.
And before we move
Yeah.
on, I'd also like to add, if you attend this workshop with Jonathan and you attend all 4 sessions, you'll be entered in for a chance for a free one-on-one coaching session with him as well.
That's right. Thank you, Anthony. I forgot about that. All right. So let's continue. So again, for your self-reflection, out of what was covered in this section, what stood out for you? And what area or areas are you most interested in and why? Is it cyber? Is it networking? Is it support? Is it web development? Is it the cloud? Is it maybe this AI thing, that is coming up? So I think that is something that, yeah, think about it. All right, let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about degrees versus certifications. This is a, one of the biggest questions, or the questions that we get. So what should I get? Should I get a degree or a certification? So let's go to the next slide and let's do a couple of statements here. First of all, IT, and for most of these areas, and I'm talking about IT, not computer science. We said that at the beginning. For computer science, you usually require a degree, but IT, it's a skills and experience based. So those are the two things that are mostly valued in job postings. Okay, as you can see from there, about 25% of IT professionals do not have college degrees. We are not discouraging people from getting college degrees. On the contrary, college degrees are going to give you a breadth of exposure to various aspects of IT and also other things. In reality, what a degree prepares you for is the degree does not prepare you for the job. The degree in reality, what prepares you is like it tries to give you a rounded knowledge so you can be a good professional with specific tracks. So that's what a degree does. So it's a little bit more general. But now, a degree will help you definitely for advancement, and a lot of positions require a degree, especially at the management level. All right. So certifications on the other end show you that you have a more narrow, so the degree is wide, okay? The degree is wide, sometimes deep, sometimes shallow, sometimes deep, depends on the class, depends on the thing, but it's basically more generalistic. And certification is a lot more narrow and a lot more deeper, okay? And so basically a certification is saying this person has this particular knowledge in this particular area, okay? It could be foundational or it could be very, very specific, okay? And they are generally required on most job announcements. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So let's talk about certifications, because again, I think that this is a question that we get a lot, and we're gonna get a lot more into specific certifications on the next 2 sessions. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, first of all, IT certifications are often listed in job postings either as required or preferred, okay? We're gonna go back to the second bullet in a minute because I want to touch on the third and fourth bullet point. So the fourth bullet point, IT certifications, like we said, can cover general areas within IT or be a little bit more narrow, okay? The third bullet, I think, is important because IT certifications can be vendor specific or vendor neutral. This is important. So what is one versus the other? Vendor neutral means that the certification covers an area of IT, such as networking, such as data analytics, or any other things, without a specific vendor. So let's say that you get CompTIA, and we're going to talk a little bit about CompTIA in the next slide. Not that we're endorsing them, but they are very popular, and we need to talk when we're talking certifications. We cannot not talk about CompTIA. So Let's say that you're getting a Network Plus certification from CompTIA. That's a vendor neutral certification. What that proves is that you, and to an employer, it means that you have demonstrated that you have knowledge about computer networks. All right. Now, a vendor specific networking certification will be something like the CCNA or Cisco Certified Network Associate. That one demonstrates to an employer that you know how to do networking according to Cisco, that you know how Cisco switches, routers, etc., work. So you can deploy them, you can configure, you can troubleshoot them, you can patch them. So that kind of situation. So I hope that I'm making myself clear as what is vendor neutral vendor versus vendor specific. So let's go back to the second bullet point. So how do you get a certification? So as you can see, RC certifications require preparation and or training, passing a test, and continuing education credits in addition to fees. Let's break down that a little bit. So there's 4 ways that you can prepare for certification. You think that you have the knowledge because you have acquired it yourself through your experience in the industry or because you have self-learned it. You can go ahead and apply and take the test. Nobody says you cannot take a test without taking a class. You can sign up for a test. Most people don't do this, but this is an option. The other option should be that you take a preparation course, and this comes in different flavors, okay? And I think I want to touch on this point because it's important. A lot of people that is trying to look into certifications, they do a Google search and they see these different courses, and you're like, why is this course $500? Why is this course $5,000? Let me explain to you. So there are different preparation courses. I do recommend if you are trying to gain the knowledge, if you are not an expert in the area, my main recommendation is take a certification, I'm sorry, a course, a preparation course in a community college. Doesn't have to be Montgomery College. All community colleges have the workforce development area, which, by the way, is the area under which we operate. And we're going to talk about some of the offerings that we have here at Montgomery College as far as that. Why am I recommending that? Number one, it's longer. It's usually a few weeks, anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. So it's not as compressed, and you get to digest and learn a little bit more. B is going to be probably your cheapest option. We're talking about hundreds of dollars. We're talking 500, depending on certification course, right? The other option could be you go to these technical institutes, which, not shade, I'm not trying to throw anything wrong against them, but they're usually a little bit more expensive. We're talking about a couple $1,000s. They're a little bit more compressed, okay? But if that is what works for you, absolutely. The third is what I call the nuclear option. And this is usually $4,000 or $5,000, and these are boot camps. And I've gone through all of those. I only recommend those if you already have a foundational to medium knowledge of the area that you are going, because they just go 100 miles an hour and they give you 1,000 pages in 4 or 5 days, and they're very expensive. I have been lucky that these have been paid. I have taken a couple of these boot camps. These have been paid by our employer, Montgomery College. I'm very grateful for that. One of the benefits that we have working here at the college. But those are how you prepare for it. Okay, there's a fourth option that, again, you prepare yourself, you buy the book, the official or unofficial book, you prepare yourself, then you schedule a test. Test, you have to pay. Depending on certification, it could be something as low as $150 or something to around that area to over $1,000 for the test. For certain cybersecurity certifications like the GAC, those are super expensive. Okay, what happens if you pass the test? Congratulations. For the most part, you are now certified, okay? What happens if you don't pass the test? Unfortunately, you will have to wait either a couple of weeks or a few weeks to do a retake of the test. Most cases, you have to pay the fee again. You get a discounted fee, but you don't get voided the fee just because you didn't pass it the first time. I want to go back to the most times you are certified. A lot of certifications, most these certifications do not have a prerequisite, okay? You pass the test, you're certified, all right? Congratulations, you get your little diploma, and now you can say, I am A+ Network Plus certified, whatever. You don't have to prove that you have any experience. There are other certifications, however, that do require that you have some pre-qualifications. At the beginning, when I talk about my certification, the one that I'm currently holding, the CISSP, in addition to pass a very hard test, you have to prove that you have had 5 years of full-time paid experience in 3 of the 9 domains for what they consider domains. And also, you have to be endorsed by another CISSP holder. Last but not least, you need to sign a contract with them saying that you're not going to use the knowledge that you have acquired for evil and that you are going to do your best to enhance the profession or to advance the profession. So but those are mostly the higher level certifications. For entry level certifications, you do not need any prerequisites. So now you're certified, you passed the test. What happens now? I'm certified forever? No. Certifications usually last only 2 or 3 years, mostly 3 years. So what happens at the end of those 3 years? First of all, number one, you need to pay a yearly fee to maintain the certification. And that yearly fee could be anywhere from $75 to what is it that I pay for my CSSP? It's like $300 a year or something. Anyways, just to maintain it. Okay, so at the end of those 3 years, you either retake that test, or B, during the past 3 years, you need to acquire what they call CPEs or CPUs. Basically, you need to attend courses or teach a course or watch webinars, attend conferences, whatever it is. You need to get certain amount of CEUs so you can get recertified without taking the test. All right, so now with all that said, I don't want people to get scared. Certifications are very important in IT. Some people think that by getting 5 certifications, it made them more appealing. Not necessarily. Okay, in some ways, having 1 certification is good enough. Having 2 is better. In some ways, some is worth stacking. And I mentioned, for example, having the Network Plus the CCNA, that's a good stack. Okay, but if you have a certification in cyber and then you have another in networking, that actually works well. But if you have one in cyber and then you have another in data and you have another, for an employee, like, what is this person trying to do? They're all over the place. So, and remember that you have to maintain each one of these, and you have to pay that yearly fee, and you have to get the CEUs for each one of them. So they're important to have, but you need to maintain them, and you need to make sure that they make sense for you at the moment. I had certifications that I had let expire because they're no longer, I had the Security Plus certification. But when I got my CISSP, I allowed that to expire because the CISSP is a higher certification in the same field. All right, does that make sense? Why would I maintain one entry level and one higher level certification for the same team? I have to pay double fees. And is that helping me? Not really. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And we spend a lot of time certifications, but I think that's one of the biggest questions that we always get. Let's go to the next slide. I talk about who's CompTIA. Again, we're not in any way, shape, or form endorsing them, but CompTIA is the Computing Technology Association, is a non-profit trade association, and their certifications are considered an industry standard. So again, a lot of their certifications are considered the entry-level credential for a lot of different things. For example, the A+ certification is considered the entry-level certification to do support, especially to do help desk. The Network Plus to start into the networking, Security Plus to start in security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of the certifications are vendor neutral, not vendor specific, okay? So that's what CompTIA is. Let's go to the next slide, please. By the way, this is the only one that we're going to talk about in this one. On the next sessions, we're going to talk about specific certifications for specific areas, okay? If you have zero knowledge of IT and you're like, oh my gosh, this certification, the CompTIA ITF Plus, is a credential that kind of shows that you have foundational knowledge in IT. I am not necessarily endorsing it. If you want to acquire foundational knowledge in IT, you can take a preparation course, not necessarily, even though this course will be good enough for anybody, you don't have to attempt the test if you don't want to, because I'm going to be completely honest, I have no knowledge of anybody asking for this certification. All right. So I will take the class. If I am trying to get the knowledge, I will not take the exam. I will prepare myself a little bit better that I can take the A plus. Okay. All right. So that's again one the one that we're going to talk about today. Let's go to the next slide, please. So what I was covering this section, what stood out for you again, and what certification or certifications are you most interested in and why? And again, I think that the question here that you have to ask yourself is how these certification or certifications made sense for me right now in the job that I'm trying to get. Okay. And when it will be, is it good? And again, this is not for life. These things are usually, good for a few years and then you move on into something else, but sometimes it makes sense to continue keeping them. So up to what point is it makes sense for me, okay, and my professional profile. Let's go to the next slide because we still have a few things to cover in 15 minutes. I want to talk about how to gain knowledge and experience because we talked about that being one of the main um, obstacles to getting into a career in IT is that they're asking you for both knowledge and experience. And it's like, how do I get those, at the same time? There are ways, it's not easy, but so again, so gaining knowledge through education. And again, it could be a degree, it could be a certification, it could be just a preparation course, whatever it is. Boot camps, we talk about those, and not necessarily they don't have to be a boot camp uh, for a certification. Here at the hub, we offer a couple of free boot camps. They are not as intensive as the ones that I described, and we're going to do them again, hopefully in the spring. And these are just boot camps for introduction to coding. So people that want to understand what is coding and the coding concepts, we have one, and the other one that we do is for app design. Because again, remember when we're talking about the developer, the two sides of being a developer are both sides. So volunteer work, that is important. That counts a lot for experience. So both the education and the boot camps are mostly for gaining knowledge, right? The volunteer work and the internships, either paid or unpaid, those are great to show your experience, okay? Um, and again, volunteer work, yeah, you didn't get paid for it, but it's experience. And if you can talk about, I created this website for my church, or, I helped this organization, nonprofit with their network or whatever it is, you're showing that you can do it. You just didn't get remunerated for it. That's fine. Same thing with internships. And these are hard. These really are the best bang for your buck. But I'm going to be honest, you have to do a lot of work to get an internship, either paid or unpaid. But this is one of the best things that you can do because A, you get knowledge and you get experience. And B, a lot of them sometimes is the way that you get your foot inside the door of the organizations. A lot of them, sometimes after the internship, you actually get offered a position. Not all of them, but that's one way. So another way to gain knowledge, especially for the people that is in one particular field and they're trying to get into IT, job shadow is a very interesting one. And a lot of organizations, I don't know, a lot of companies offer this. So if you talk to your boss and say, look, I'm trying to get into this IT. Is there any way that I can do like a job shadow to somebody in IT, to a network engineer? Because I'm really interested in becoming a network engineer. So then they will talk to the network engineering boss and say, hey, I have Eduardo here who's interested. And do you have anybody that he can, job shadow like every other Friday for a couple of hours? And they say, yeah, sure. He can go and talk to Joe. Joe, it's a network engineer. He's been doing this for 10 years. So job shadow, basically, you are allowed to go and see what the guy does. You kind of follow him, you don't become a nuisance or a pest, and then you ask the right questions, but that's a great way to experience what that person does. Informational interviews, these are actually pretty good as well. And then you can, again, for the same example, I want to be a network engineer. So I go ahead and I ask Joe, can I do an informational interview with you? Because I'm interested in being a network engineer. Any professional that is worth his or her salt will most likely say, yes, I'm glad to talk to you for half an hour, 1 hour. But this is the thing. You have to be very respectful of the time. You have to be very respectful of the questions that you ask. And an informational interview is something like, okay, all right, so what does your day-to-day look like? You can ask a little bit about money, not specifics like, are you comfortable with the salary that you make? What kind of education, certifications, experience you, you were required when you started? Is a good career? Do you consider it a good career? Do you like it? Do you have a good work-life balance? Those kind of things, so you find out more from a person that is doing it. And last one is super important, network. You don't understand. I know that you have heard this before, but networking is so important. I want you guys to understand that 8 out of 10 jobs are filled not by outside applicants, but by people that know you know somebody in the company. Okay, so somebody companies, hey man, yeah, you have this job opening. I have this guy that I know I can really recommend. Can you at least look at his resume? That's how most happen. But that you get that through that networking. And we're going to talk about networking in the next slide. So how you can network in the classroom with other students, professors, etc., meetups, job fairs, hiring events, conferences, chamber of commerce events. Last but not least, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very powerful way to network. Even if you don't have a lot of experience, do create a LinkedIn profile and start looking for people in the field that you want to go and ask them to join your network. And that's how you start creating networks. So all these things are ways that you can network and put yourself out there. Say, hey, I want to be a network engineer. I'm studying this. This is what I'm trying to get. This so people start seeing that enthusiasm and they go, okay, I remember that guy. Okay, so that's a good way. Let's go to the next slide. So again, I told you this is one way to gather knowledge. And in the next slide, so here at the college, the Information Technology Institute is our sister program. And what they do is that they offer these non-credit workforce development classes that prepare for people from anywhere. And we had just one earlier today in the room next door for people that is trying to acquire just basic computer skills to a lot more advanced skills. Please, in the next slide, is just, yeah, it's a screenshot of some of the courses that they offer. And these courses vary by location and by semester. But this is some of the courses that they offer. Again, these are non-credit classes. Some of them are preparation for just so you can get the knowledge or preparation for specific certifications. Okay, so that's one resource for you. Let's go to the next slide. The other resource that you have, guys, is us. You're here because you have found us. All right, so you know about us, about our events. Let's go to the next slide. And just here are some of the services that we offer to inform you a little bit more about, jobs in IT. We have our two guest speakers here. We have the fireside chat and the future of tech. And again, these are guest speaker series. So guest speakers come here to talk to you, to the whole community in the same format, both in person and online. And they have a little different focus. So the fireside chat concentrates mostly on the career path. Okay, so there's people that come and talk about this is how I went. This is my career path's been. One thing that you'll find in common that there's no cookie cutter path, and there's no linear path. There's no way that you start here and then you follow a straight line. There's always deviations, and that's the interesting thing. So the future of tech is mostly about a particular piece of technology, but not only the technology, but how that is applied and how that influences you, your community, the world, etc. I talk about those coding boot camps, the IT career pathways workshops, what you're attending today. The next is Chris here? Chris, okay. So in a second, we're going to be hearing from Chris about the career workshops and career coaching. So I would like to introduce you to Chris. He is our with our partner with Career Catchers, and in the next slide, he will show you some of the services that we offer through Career Catchers. So thank you, Chris, for being here, and floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes, so as Eduardo mentioned, my name is Chris Stevens. I am a career coach. I work with a nonprofit organization called Career Catchers here in Montgomery County, and we are partnered with the Ignite Hub to provide some services to interested individuals. So in addition to the monthly career workshops that I facilitate, every month we do a different topic about job searching and career planning. I also provide one-on-one career coaching. So things like helping you, whether you're new to the IT field or already in the IT field and looking to advance. I can help with things like updating your resume, helping with job applications, identifying appropriate opportunities, doing interview prep, finding different options for training, talking about career planning, goal setting, all that support that goes into to finding a job. So if you're interested, I'm gonna put my email in the chat here. Feel free to send me a message, and as long as you're a Montgomery County resident, we can meet one on one and discuss all your questions around your job search. You can also
Thank you,
use that
Chris.
QR code on the screen to schedule an appointment as well.
Yeah, and if for some reason that doesn't work, just let us know, and then we'll get you in touch with Chris. He just put the his email on the chat, but for the people here in person, if you have any issues, just send us an email, and then we will get you in touch with Chris, so you can schedule that appointment. Thank you so much. This is really, really good because career coaching is something that we all need. And these career workshops that Chris provide are super interesting. So for example, here is our what is happening for this particular for the fall. So the August and September already happened, but in October we're going to have resume writing. In November we're going to have career exploration, and in December job search strategies. And on top of that, we have that one-on-one career coaching, which I think is a super valuable thing, and we are really happy with career catchers and Chris. And thank you again for the service that you provide, Chris, here at the hub. And I really encourage you guys to take advantage of this free service. All right. Thank you, Chris. Thanks again. And thanks for joining us tonight. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Um, thank you. So let's go to the next slide. All right. All right. And this is, I am going to exhort you to do something about this. So first of all, is for your reflection. Out of what was covered in this whole presentation, what stood out for you the most? Okay. So what was it? Are you now more convinced? Oh, we have a question, and I'll get to you in a second. Um, so what was the thing? It's like, am I really interested in a career in IT? And if so, which one? What was something that I found out today that I didn't know, or I want to investigate more? But the second point is the one that I want everybody, and you, if you want to share it, great. Otherwise, I would like for everybody to take some kind of action after attending this presentation. And that action doesn't have to be huge, okay? That action could be as I'm going to schedule an appointment with Chris, or the action could be, I'm gonna find out a little bit more about cybersecurity. The action could be, I'm gonna attend next week IT career workshop because I wanna find out more about cybersecurity. Um, or it could be, well, I think that I'm now ready to start exploring maybe a preparation course, all right? So what action are you going to take? Okay. What is next? Because this is your career, this is your future. If you're here, it's because you are interested. Otherwise, you will not be spending part of your evening of this rainy night here with us. I think we have a question, right, Anthony?
Yeah, Amy posted one question in the
Okay.
chat that she wanted answered, and then she also wanted to answer the questions that you posted
Oh, okay.
on the PowerPoint. So firstly, the question she asked was, I was able to get the Google certification for cybersecurity and IT courses through Coursera while I was at the boot camp once. I love it, but will this secure a job for me if I have help desk tier 2 Xfinity background?
Okay, that's a very good question. And I think that we are going to talk a little bit more about cyber. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I was just talking to some of our in-person attendees during the break. Uh, Unfortunately, getting into cyber is a little difficult. Not impossible, but it is a little difficult because a couple of things. And that you are doing great, Amy. By the way, with that knowledge, you keep on acquiring good knowledge. What I think is going to be your main obstacle to getting into a cyber right now is going to be being able to prove that you have some level of experience, especially with the tools that are used. And I think that the problem with most people trying to get both into IT and specifically into these higher fields like cybersecurity. Like I told the attendees earlier today, I always said this to the people trying to get into cyber. How can you be a good protector if you don't know what you're protecting? So you are making great strides of gathering the knowledge about what you need to protect. Okay. But I think that that experience piece is what is definitely what may be a little bit of an obstacle for you. Having experience in the help desk is great. So having some experience in IT, it's essential almost, I'm going to say, to get into cyber. Uh, there are there people that has zero experience in IT and has getting into cyber? Absolutely, but that's mostly an exception rather than the rule. Most of the people that are in cyber today actually did not start in cyber. Most of the people in cyber either started in networking or in the programming side. And that's how, as this cyber team started coming up, they started thinking more about the security and they started specializing into the security part of those areas. A lot of people from support as well. And my background is mostly from support and system administration. And that's why I got into cyber. But yeah, so I hope that answers your question. And we can talk a little bit more about your specific case, but that's what I see. And now you said that she wanted to answer some of the questions. Please
Yeah,
do.
yeah. She posted a follow-up comment. I worked with McAfee and also wall gardens, IP management. What stood out for the explanation of the various aspects of data management? Never knew about the mining concept, but moving forward, I'm going to look into cloud and network security or management.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate that comment again. I think that that analogy in reality with the data mining as is just, and again, it's just mind-boggling the amount of data that we are producing and that we are collecting. It's and this has become for a couple of reasons. First of all, with now we are producing so much data and storage space has become really cheap. Storage space used to be super expensive, and not that long ago. Now you can buy terabytes and terabytes of storage space for honestly for a couple $100. This used to cost in the tens of thousands of dollars before. So we are having a lot of space to put all this data, but we need to start sifting through it, and that's where the data analytics come from. And I'm going to tell you something. AI is going to make, or is making already, a lot of inroads in data analytics and cybersecurity. Why? Because you're sifting through tremendous amount of data that is being collected, and you need these tools that can really look into and start sifting this data for you, because the analysis of this is very tedious and is, as you well know, Amy. So I think that it's worth looking into that. But thank you for the comment, and yeah, best luck to you. And let's continue talking about your career. But I think that you are in a solid position, or at least you have a very good knowledge of where you're heading. And data security is huge, is big. I think that that's is a subset. So again, because a lot of the people that is doing data analysis right now, they're more in tune, or they're more focused on actually getting those little gold nuggets out of that pile of dirt. But you still need the people that needs to secure once the data has been acquired. So I think that's important. So thank you. Yes.
Another follow-up question. Does
Sure.
a certificate in AI help?
Again, I am starting to recommend that. I have been pondering lately what because I need to, what I know about AI, I know how it works, but I need to start like really looking into the application of AI a lot more seriously. So yes, with the caveat that there's a ton of things right now. So what is that you're trying to do with that AI? So for example, if your goal is to work in data, I think that learning how to be a better prompt uh, engineer is a great way to start. Another area of AI that I will be very interesting is like training those language models, and for the data application specifically, I will be looking into the different tools that are being used right now, the AI tools specifically that are being used in data analytics, on how they are working with existing tools like Power BI or like Tableau for like the data analytics. So that's what I will say. Yes, but you have to be a little bit more intentional into exactly what part of AI you want to learn. So that's why I'm taking pause, because I'm thinking that that's what I need to figure out, find out what is the exact knowledge in AI that I need. So thank you for that question. That was great. All right, a couple of things before we leave. I'm sorry, we're going a little bit over. Let's go to the next slide. So thank you. That's my information. Again, you will receive this. And the next slide, please, before you leave, take a minute, and Anthony is going to post for the people on online. He's going to post the link. This is a survey, and I will really, really appreciate if you guys can take 2 minutes of your time and complete this survey. We really look into these and do an honest evaluation of myself and the workshop. And if there's anything that you will change, this helps us a lot. This helps us, and we do look at these results thoroughly at the end of every semester to improve our programming. While you do that, I would like to thank you uh, for being with us tonight. We went a couple of minutes over, and I'm imposing a couple more on you by filling this questionnaire. But you could have been anywhere tonight. And again, for the people that is here in person, I truly appreciate it. The weather is a little, on the rainy side. And for the people who join us online as well, you could have been you could have been anywhere or be doing anything else, but you chose to spend these last couple of hours with us. And for that, I'm truly grateful. I hope that this was useful to you, and it was able to answer some of your questions. And I am hoping to see you all next Tuesday and the Tuesday after. And again, expect to that email with the recording of the presentation and a copy of the presentation as well. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, and hopefully I'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you.
Mhm.
Here.